Thinking about buying a franchise? Then the How to Buy a Franchise show is just for you. Here's your host, Dr. John Hayes.
Hi, I'm John Hayes. I'm at the International Franchise Expo in New York City. This is a place where you can find a franchise that might be the right opportunity for you. There are some 400 franchise opportunities here with investments lower than $10,000 up to $1 million. And of course, there's lots of education going on here, lots of symposia and seminars as well. Most of them are free. The International Franchise Expo runs June 16 through 18, 2016. It's an annual event here at the Javits Center in New York City. This is our 25th year, and I'm happy to be here today with Christy Delk, who's one of the speakers at the International Franchise Expo and has a very interesting background. Thank you for tuning in on iTunes and on Stitcher Radio and at howtobuyafranchise.com, where I never sell franchises, but I'll educate you about opportunities in franchising and determining whether or not a franchise makes good sense for you. So, Christy, welcome to my program today.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here. So let's begin with your interest in franchising. You were a franchisee.
That's right, John. I found my way to franchising not in an unusual path, similar, I think, to how other people find their ways, in that I had been laid off from corporate, probably fired once or twice, I'm pretty sure it was twice, and decided it was time to have my own business, and did some research and found that, wow, this was, for me, quite clearly the best path to ownership.
So what came first? Did you say, I'm going to go buy a franchise, so let me read up on it, or I'm going to buy a business and in the process discovered franchising?
That's a great question. It was that I wanted to have my own business, and then the concept of franchising was presented to me by someone that I trusted, that had some knowledge about a particular industry, a particular niche in the industry.
And how many years ago was that?
That was 1995.
Okay.
21 years.
Okay, and can you remember what light bulb went off when you heard franchising? A lot of people are turned off immediately, and they're turned off for a variety of reasons. One is they think it's too expensive. Another is they think, well, I don't want to sell food. That's McDonald's.
Yeah.
So what, did you have a negative or a positive immediate reaction?
I think that being curious is probably a great asset for people that are open to different opportunities. And so it was neither negative or positive, but a strong curiosity about how does it work? How could this industry that I was interested in, which happened to be early childhood education, that is a franchise? Wow, I had no knowledge of that.
Yeah. There are 75 different primary industries that use franchising as their method of distribution, but most people don't know that. When they come to an expo like this, the first thing they say is, wow, I didn't know there were franchises. Right up the pathway here is a new franchise concept that sells boulders, big boulders that you can put in your yard or in front of your business. Who would have thought of it? Right.
I saw them, yeah.
So people are amazed at the kinds of things that are franchised. Early childhood education or child care, elderly care. These are industries that do use franchising. So then when was it when you said I'm interested in the process here, how this works for someone who wasn't in franchising before, didn't have a family member who had a franchise, there was no one particularly selling you about franchising, you explored it and investigated it. So what was the magic, or what was the turning point that said, I think this is the way I've got to go. I need to do it, rather than doing it on my own, I need to do it as a franchise.
Yeah. Well, the particular field that I was very interested in, and that was early childhood education, I knew that I didn't know enough about it to write a curriculum, to design a building, to do the branding and all of that was associated with it. But I knew that if I had that done for me and with me, that I could make a success of the actual business. So I had business experience, but not in that specific field.
And why that field? Why did that interest you?
I talk about how people come about choosing different franchises quite a bit. And I do think in large part there's a lifestyle choice for sure. You definitely need to have a strong interest or a passion for the area that you get involved in. It's going to be, a big part of your life. So whether it's a lifestyle choice and that it's a business to business, or you can work out of your home, or in my case, I had a young child, so I knew if I was involved for 10 or 15 years, that would be perfect. As I raised him, I would have the school, and in part, he could be raised up during it. And so I chose that because I knew that I would be able to impact the clients, the family. I could relate to them, and they could relate to me.
And how easy was it to find credible information about franchising in 1995 when you were looking?
I had one specific opportunity because I knew somebody that was familiar with the franchisor and the concept and the success, but it was not super easy. There were a couple of others that I could have chosen, but it was more about the familiarity of this particular brand. They were out there, but it's nothing like it is today. I mean, this exhibit hall blows me away.
Right.
And a year ago, John, I came here thinking, okay, I'd really like to get involved with the franchise community because the industry did so much for me. And so I thought, I'm going to go to this expo. My mind was blown.
Right.
But still, it's people to people.
Yes.
It's relationships, and people are happy to help you and educate you.
Definitely. So what year did you begin the franchise in 95?
I started the process in 95. It took a couple of years for me to borrow the money, to get that all together. And then because it was a building, there was a lot to do in terms of buying the property and so forth. So that was a big project. It was a big commitment. I wasn't scared about it, but it was big. So it took a couple of years. So I opened my doors in 1998.
Okay. So that leads to another point that I want to explore. You needed to get some financing. You didn't pay for all this out of your own pocketbook. You didn't write a check for the total investment, and people think they have to do that. How did you find banks and leasing companies, or who did you go to get the money to buy a franchise?
Yeah, that's a really important aspect of being successful in this industry, is not being afraid to borrow money, because there are people that are willing and able to lend it to you because they know that the franchisor that you're working with has a fabulous reputation, that the franchisees are successful, that the loan won't be at risk. So borrowing money as a franchise is a whole lot different than going off and trying to get that type of credit worthiness without the backing. And that was a huge thing. So what they did was, I had my 10 or 15% down, and part of my story is I sold my house. I mean, you were committed. I was really committed. But they immediately hooked me up with a couple of lenders that were familiar with the franchisor rather, and helped me through the process. And I borrowed over $1 million. And I'm not going to say it was easy, because there's a lot of information that you have to do, of course, but it made me a better business owner to do that. But the money was there to be lent, and I think it's even more prevalent today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Franchising has a tremendous success history with lenders. So SBA, the Small Business Administration, for example, loves franchising because of that success record. Most banks that loan money to small businesses and leasing companies favor franchising because of exactly what you've said. A franchisor develops a concept and teaches people how to follow their success. Doesn't always happen that way. And it doesn't always happen that way because sometimes the franchisee is not the right person. Franchising is not for everyone, as I say over and over and over. It's a fabulous concept for developing your own business, but it may not be for you, and it's not for most people. And figuring out, how did you figure out it was right for you? How did you know, okay, I can do this and I'm well suited, and how interested was the franchisor in knowing if you were the right person?
There was a big interest in his part, because they know much better than we know approaching them what the best profile is of a successful franchisee in his system or her system. And I think it was through 2 conversations. One, I attended a grand opening, and then the other was a one-on-one where I went to visit. He asked many, many questions. He and his wife asked many, many questions, and knew that I would do the work that was necessary, and in their case, what was important is that you're an owner-operator, that you're on site, that you're engaged in the business. I know there are others where you can be an absentee owner to a certain extent and buy in at a certain percent, but in this case it was 100% and as an owner-operator. So he was very particular about that. And then for me, I also was seeking somebody who had not just warmth and integrity, but had a lot of tools in place to help me be successful, and a team developed so that I had different people that I could call on, because franchisees, like entrepreneurs, sometimes we don't like to ask for help, but the franchisors have resources there for you. And so it made it super easy for me to commit to the business. And I did the numbers, to get back to your first part of your question. I did the numbers, and they helped me a little bit with the business plan. There's only so many things that they can share with you. Most of it you do need to work on your own, and that's for good reason. But once I did the numbers and I realized, wow, this is a great model. I can make a lot of money and do a lot of good. I realized, yeah, this is it. I'm in.
And that's the motivators. People want to make a lot of money.
Yep.
And they want to do good. People want to own a business that they feel good about and that makes a difference for people in their community. So how did that happen for you? I'm assuming you made a lot of money and you did a lot of good. So talk about that. How did that come about?
It turned out great, and I worked on my business plan, and one of the things I talk about is use professionals. I had a CPA work with me on my plan. I had an attorney to examine documents and other things that came up when I expanded. But I very, very methodically approached my business. I used certain strategies that I shared today, as a matter of fact, about having strategies that align with franchise processes, but that make you more competitive, that help you build loyalty, that help you engage in the community. Those are 3 of probably the 5 top ones, but being engaged in your business, knowing your numbers. I mean, it's a business like any other business, and that said, it's very important that you, as a franchise, have a presence in your community. Otherwise, people will go to that other place that they go to, which is, oh, that's just a chain. Remember when we used to just say, oh, that's a chain?
Yeah.
But now we know, oh, some are chains and
right.
Some are corporate and some are individually owned by local operators. But I engaged in a huge way. I did some leadership activities and did some board work. We did Healthy Kids Day at the YMCA. My staff, I was always very happy if they'd wear their shirts out and pass out cards. The Chick-fil-A, they have a great model there where they hand out their clients their food cards, free chicken, and then the plush cows and things like that. People love to be invited to come to your business. So just being a part of the community.
And did the franchisor teach you this, how to go out and market your business?
They had resources that you could use and incorporate for branding and for attracting people, but I was going to say no, that's a self-motivating thing.
So not all franchisees were doing this?
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So then what didn't you know that you wish you had known when you started your franchise? And through no one's fault. Either you didn't think about it at the time, or you never found that kind of information, or it caught you totally off guard. Something you said, wow, I hadn't thought that was going to happen, or I wish I had known about that.
Well, I'm going to answer it in probably my biggest example, which is I ended up expanding my business excuse me, because I bought a piece of land that allowed me to do that. And I had a really strong relationship with the franchisor. They do not teach you how important that is, number one, to have a really strong relationship with your franchisor and have a strong loyalty bond. But what happened was I ended up growing, and then I expanded again and grew again. And I got a little too big, John. I was making great money.
Yeah.
The business got a little bigger than I could manage with just this one person.
Yeah.
So I ended up hiring a general manager, and then I ended up selling. And so after 15 years, I sold. And so to answer your question, I would say I wish there had been more pre-planning in the beginning, so that I would have thought more about, okay, instead of expanding this one, more thoughts to multi-unit growth, and have flexed my, most entrepreneurs like to be challenged regularly.
Yeah.
And so every few years you get a little bored and
Yeah,
you got to
sure.
do something else. So I wish I had flexed my muscles a little differently and maybe bought a second franchise, or even in a different brand, because some of the more successful franchisees have more than,
Multi-unit.
they have multi-unit of a single brand, or they have more than one brand.
Yeah.
And I think that seems like a really great idea.
So recapping that, it's knowing the franchisor and having a good relationship with the franchisor, and not many people actually talk about that.
Nope.
And then secondly, thinking about or knowing about buying more than one,
Yeah.
which could have been a good opportunity for you.
Yeah, maybe it would be something. I mean, a lot of people will talk about the onboarding, and that is when you start with the franchise and how you get to know the brand and so forth. That would be a good discussion to have at some point in that process, that once you get to a certain place, you might start to get a little antsy, or you may have some concerns about the exit plan and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would.
And then how did your relationship with the franchisor, how did that develop? And what was the good and the bad of that?
Oh, so it developed definitely over time. And what I found was that when I asked for help, he came running. You know, he would help me sort out a situation or pick up the phone. He was very, very accessible. And so I realized there was no shame in picking up the phone and calling and asking questions. And there was really no problem too small or too stupid to share. And so once I built that familial relationship, then it became very easy. The other thing is, I accepted, probably more so than other franchisees in the system, that, hey, this was the deal we signed up for. And the loyalty that we built is really important in many, many areas. And it's real important to honor with integrity that relationship. And if you have a constructive thing to say, then bring it. But just like in any corporation, people will start talking negatively. And so as a franchisee, you need to stay true to your positive values and the things that you think are important to your success, and shield out some of the others, because it's a relationship, and we all have good years and bad years, and we have to be mindful that franchises and businesses do too.
Yeah. Not all franchisors are created equal. Some are better than others. And it sounds like you got a good one who was attentive to what you needed to know, and what answers when you needed them. What about the challenge of being a franchisee? Can you think back to, were there days when you said, I don't think I should have done this? Did those days occur? And if so, why would they occur? And I'm looking for, how do you not get discouraged and get depressed and you end up on the wrong side of the financial plan?
Yeah, that takes a lot of discipline, because certainly we are going to have unforeseen events happen. But for me, what I did was I got really, really strategic. And strategy does not get you out of a super deep funk if you're having a really super bad day. But you have to be open to surprises. Sometimes you'll see something and it will look like something that's going to be insurmountable or really difficult, or you have that challenging client, or your payroll was too high, or you can go down the list. And sometimes you need to just get away, and sometimes I would do that. Let me just go eat a salad or go have some R&R time for Christy, and then come back renewed, but with a plan. And then, pull your leadership pants up and do what you have to do to make your business better. And so building processes in your franchise is going to give you an operations manual, and they're going to have processes for certain things, but you still are going to influence in terms of leadership. One of the things that's difficult is sometimes you have to let good people go. They may not be bad people, but they're not good for your business. Yeah. And that's a hard one. And that would happen regularly for me, because I was really picky about who I would allow to be in front of the clients and who would be speaking for me in terms of the staff and, representing me properly. And sometimes staff starts to get a little too much ownership in their mind and maybe lose track of what's important. So letting people go is not easy, but it's necessary. Keeping up with the money, day after day is very, very important. And if you don't, people can and will steal from you. And I had that happen a couple of times. So my biggest funk was because I did find out that somebody had stolen from me, and I had a health issue, so I was not around as much as I had been previously. So it probably went on for about 6 months. And when she went on vacation and I was sitting at the front desk collecting money, I noticed that a couple of the accounts did not look right. And I had noticed that my cash didn't quite look right either. So that's when it first hit me that I think I had a thief amongst my midst. And she was trusted 8 years, and brought her up from being in the classroom. So I tracked that. I filed a report with the authorities, and things were done. She wasn't actually arrested, but I was so bummed out after that. I had to take some time, and I realigned, and that's when I brought in somebody that was more of an overseer to help me, because the business had grown fast. There was a lot of money flying around, and today, and this is sort of under the cautionary side, is there's so many different ways we collect money. You want to make it convenient for your customers, and at the same time it makes it a little more challenging as an owner to balance all that. Mm-hmm. So my CPA would say, wow, I really matched my costs and expenses up with my revenue for the first 5 years, and I did. So that was a good plan. But after that, it grew and grew, and it took a lot of attention to detail, mm-hmm. and bringing in and finding good people.
Did you get your money back that was stolen?
I got half of it back.
Okay.
Yeah, it was $40,000,
wow.
And I got 20 back.
Yeah.
Not from her, but I had liability insurance,
okay.
and they protect up to
good.
$20,000.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah.
Good for you on that. So what did this do to your family life? How did owning a franchise and operating a franchise, and not just a small franchise, this was a huge commitment that you made.
Yeah.
How did that impact your family? Talk about that.
Okay. Well, so I was a single mom, and I don't play that card. No disrespect intended to our single moms, but the point is you can do this too. And I do write a bit, and I do write about trends that are great for women. But you can make the business work for your lifestyle, again, by hiring good people, but knowing that on a daily, weekly, monthly business, it's going to be like a family member. You're going to be engaged with that. So I have one son. He incorporated right into the business, and he was around a lot. He was 3 when I opened and 18 when I sold. And then that was about all the family I had. So it worked out fine.
Yeah. So, but did it, was there still Christy time, or did that go away?
Oh, okay. That kind. Yeah. No, I'm a big believer in healthy lifestyle, so I got to the gym, I got to yoga, I had time for my friends, I had time to date, I had opportunities to get away. I did just write on, if you want to take the break you need and deserve, do these 5 things.
Okay.
So there are things to take a real break that you need to make sure you've lined up with your business, but no, I traveled. I still had a really nice lifestyle.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So when you bought the business, did you ever think about someday I'm going to sell this business? Did that ever occur to you?
Well, it actually did. And my little story is maybe a little different than others, but when I decided to do this, I knew employees were going to be a really important part of my success. And so one of the first things I did was I ran out to the United Trophy shop and bought one of those Employee of the Year plaques.
Yeah.
And I bought one because you can buy one with 80 spaces or
Right.
8 spaces. I bought one with 15 spaces. And I had done the math. Okay, he's 3, he'll be 18. I'll be, well, we'll stop there.
Yeah, right. 26.
26. And I thought, you know what, I think this is the right plaque. And it just made sense to me. I like to do different things. As you know, now I'm speaking and writing and moved into a different direction. So I bought that. So in my mind, it was always 15 years.
Yeah.
And so at about year 12, and I used to joke with my staff because they'd go, oh, Miss Christie, what about, and I'd go, well, no, maybe I'll retire then. You know, we'd all laugh. But I didn't retire, but I did sell.
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, about year 12, I'd started, maybe year 13, just making sure that everything was buttoned up nicely and that the school was looking good and the numbers were looking great, because there are different ways you can pull money out, and you want to make sure that you're doing something obviously that's legal, of course, but that would look attractive to a buyer. But it was a big secret. I didn't tell anybody.
Okay.
So I almost felt like I was having an affair because I was thinking about selling and I couldn't tell anybody,
Right.
not even the franchisor.
Yeah.
So when it was time for me, it wasn't that difficult to find the right buyer, but I enlisted a broker that specialized in that particular industry. And it worked out great. I got a nice price for it, and the new owners are doing fabulous. We get together, we're in touch, and we get together once a year on their anniversary, and it worked out great.
So what about when the franchisor found out that you were going to sell? The franchisor has a lot of approval in the process because you can't sell to just anybody. They have to approve who you're going to sell to. How did that come about?
That's a great question too. So obviously a business broker wants to sell the business, period. So he did try to bring me different prospects that I knew not only wouldn't be the right fit in terms of my clients and my staff. We get very, particular.
Yeah.
But I knew that the franchisor wouldn't approve, and for good reason. So the profile for this particular model is that generally it's a family-run operation. Generally it's a couple with, if not actual industry experience, with some significant business experience. So I waited till the right couple came along, and it did not take that long. They were thrilled to be involved in a running business concern, thrilled to be involved in the franchise. They recognized, because they had done it on their own a couple of other times, how valuable it was to be branded and associated with a successful name. And it was just like maybe when you met your wife, I don't know, John, but, or for women, it's like, oh yeah, that's the dress I'm gonna, I'm going way back now that maybe I'm going to get married in or whatever. It was instant. When we met, we talked for a couple hours, and I knew right then it was the right couple, and we had a great transaction.
And how in tune were they to looking at your books and looking at the background to make sure that the price you wanted for the business could be justified by the business you were doing? Were they savvy about how to buy a business?
I think they were reasonably savvy. They because of their corporate background on his part with a defense contractor in Central Florida and a project manager, and her background in the field, between the two of them, they did a really good job of that. And then I went ahead and did an appraisal, and so I had that done.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, another weird first was the broker said to me, the owner broker, said, nobody's ever done an appraisal ahead of time. And I said, how did they know how to price their business? And he said, that's a good question, but they don't do that. And I said, well, I didn't know if I wanted to sell yet. So
Makes sense.
so I did an appraisal, and I'd actually done one about 5 years before. So I don't think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, great idea. Along with that, what do you wish, or what would you tell people they should do in advance of getting ready to sell their franchise? What's the one thing that would really, and maybe this is it, that would really make the difference? But if you don't get a good appraisal, then obviously you're not going to be able to sell anyway. What would you tell people to do? That
I would show that you're on a growth trend for sure, and invest money in a program to help do that. In other words, don't start pinching pennies. You need to make sure that you continue to grow. Now, you may not want to, replace that, in my case, that roof or some other big capital expenditure, but you want to make sure that you show growth. You want to make sure that you show some seasoned people having been in place for a while, and for sure you want to show good numbers, just good balance sheet, good payroll numbers that are in line with industry and maybe doing industry better.
Great advice. So then you sell the business and you take your money, and then what happened?
So then I took a little downtime and did a couple of projects for my church, because I'd promised them when I sell my business, and they thought, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did, so I owed them some time. And then I relocated to the other side of town in Orlando, and just realized that it was time for me to be not only creative but to give back. And so I bought a 100-year-old house. I got a new laptop, and I thought, I'm going to work on that book about how to help other people be successful, things that maybe they don't teach you at the franchise orientation. And based on feedback that I got from other people, I didn't just go, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. I had a lot of people that know me and love me, and other people that maybe I came across in a networking opportunity or something say, wow, that is really great. You should write that or help other people. So anyway, so I decided I would start speaking, and my topics cross franchisor and franchisee boundaries into general entrepreneurship. However, I love the industry. I love the opportunities. It provides people that are willing to give it a shot and do their homework. And so I just decided I wanted to give back. And it was just 1 year ago that I came to the expo, John, and my socks were blown off because I couldn't believe how many are out here and how many different segments it represents. And the other thing that blew me away was how friendly everybody was and how helpful, and the educational opportunities that were afforded.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is the perfect place for me. So here I am 1 year later, speaking at the event, almost done with my book. And in addition to that, I teach entrepreneurship at Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. So I'm an adjunct professor, and that is really great too.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So the seminars that you're teaching are designed to help existing franchisees to become more successful?
Yes.
As opposed to prospective franchisees?
Yes, that's correct. I do find that a lot of prospective attend because they want to hear, what are the strategies? And they seem to get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
But the greater beneficiary would be franchisees at different levels, but I think for a franchisor, maybe at that 200, 150 to 300 mark, something like that. And franchisees that may be 2 years to 7 years, something like that, so that they can regroup and remember not only what makes them successful, but how to recapture their enthusiasm, the motivation, their drive to go on to do more great things.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
What's next? So I love the track that I'm on right now, working with franchisors and presenting at ownership events and conferences and things like that on whatever their initiatives are and how I might be able to help drive those messages home. The book, so that is all part and parcel with that.
Yeah.
So as a true entrepreneur, I also have a little strategic business I'm doing with drones.
Oh, wonderful.
Surprise!
Yeah.
But I love teaching. I teach 2 courses now. They're talking to me about full time, but I don't know. I like to stay light on my feet.
Yeah, sure.
Be available for other opportunities. I'm having a blast.
Yeah.
Meeting new people.
Having a blast is the best thing.
Yeah.
No
I'm
matter
having
what
a blast.
we're doing. Good.
Yeah.
Well, Christy, it's been great to have you on my
Thank you.
program. I really appreciate it, and I know that my listeners and viewers have benefited as well. I'm John Hayes. We're at the International Franchise Expo in New York City at the Javits Center. More than 400 different franchise opportunities here for people to take a look at and see if they're a good fit. But the most important part of all of this is making sure that you are a good fit for franchising, because while franchising is powerful, and as you heard from Christy, it's a way to get started in an industry and do wonderful things for yourself, including making a lot of money and having a blast in life, but it's got to be right for you. And that's what How to Buy a Franchise is all about. We educate people. We do not sell franchises. We educate people about their compatibility with franchising. If it's right for you, we can help lead you to the right franchise opportunity for you. Thanks for tuning in on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, and also at howtobuyafranchise.com. I look forward to our next session.
Thank you for listening to How to Buy a Franchise Show. If you want immediate assistance, visit howtobuyafranchise.com to contact Dr. John Hayes for a free consultation.